The United Arab Emirates is a country on the Arabian Peninsula located on the southeastern coast of the Persian Gulf and the northwestern coast of the Gulf of Oman. The UAE consists of 7 emirates and was founded on the 2nd of December 1971 as a federation. 6 of the 7 emirates combined on that date. The 7th, Ras Al Khaimah, joined the federation on the 10th of February 1972. The 7 sheikdoms were formerly known as the Trucial States, in reference to the treaty relations established with the British in the 19th century. Artifacts uncovered in the UAE show a long history of human habitation and regional trade, including with Mesopotamia. The area was settled by a number of tribes along both the coast and interior and was Islamized in the 7th century. A number of incursions and bloody battles took place along the coast when the Portuguese, under Albuquerque, invaded the area. Conflicts between the maritime communities of the Trucial Coast and the British led to the sacking of Ras Al Khaimah by British forces in 1809 and again in 1819, which resulted in the first of a number of British treaties with the Trucial rulers in 1820. These treaties, including the Treaty of Perpetual Maritime Peace, signed in 1853, led to peace and prosperity along the coast which lasted until the 1930s, when the pearl trade collapsed, leading to significant hardship among the coastal communities. A British decision, taken in early 1968, to withdraw from its involvement in the Trucial States, led to the decision to found a federation. This was agreed between 2 of the most influential Trucial rulers, Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan of Abu Dhabi and Sheikh Rashid bin Saeed Al Maktoum of Dubai. The 2 invited other Trucial rulers to join the federation. At one stage it seemed likely Bahrain and Qatar would also join the union, but both eventually decided on independence. Today, the UAE is a modern, oil-exporting country with a highly diversified economy, with Dubai in particular developing into a global hub for tourism, retail, and finance, home to the world's tallest building, largest man-made seaport. Prehistory. In 2011, primitive hand axes, as well as several kinds of scrapers and perforators, were excavated at the Jebel Fire archaeological site in the United Arab Emirates. These tools resemble the types used by early modern humans in East Africa. Through the technique of thermoluminescence dating, the artifacts were placed between 100,000 and 125,000 years old. This is the earliest evidence of modern humans found anywhere outside Africa and implies modern humans left Africa much earlier than previously thought. Amarna culture. Amarna was a Bronze Age culture that existed from 2600–2000 BC in modern-day United Arab Emirates. The etymology derives from the island of the same name which lies adjacent to Abu Dhabi. The key site is well protected, but its location between a refinery and a sensitive military area means public access is currently restricted. The UAE authorities are working to improve public access to the site, and plan to make this part of the Abu Dhabi cultural locations. One element of the Amarna culture is circular tombs, typically characterized by well-fitted stones in the outer wall and multiple human remains within. The Amarna culture, as indicated from inland 3rd millennium BC, covers no more than 7 centuries. Advent of Islam. The arrival of envoys from Muhammad in 632 heralded the conversion of the region to Islam. After Muhammad's death, one of the major battles of the Ridda Wars was fought at Dibba, in present-day Fujairah. The defeat of the non-Muslims in this battle resulted in the triumph of Islam in the Arabian Peninsula. In 637, Julfa was used as a staging post for the conquest of Iran. Over many centuries, Julfa became a wealthy port and pearling center from which dows traveled throughout the Indian Ocean. Ottoman and Portuguese control ports in the Persian Gulf, and part of the population of the region of the UAE were under the direct influence of the Ottoman Empire. By the 16th century, Portuguese expansion into the Indian Ocean in the early 16th century following Vasco da Gama's route of exploration saw them battle the Ottomans up the coast of the Persian Gulf. The Portuguese eventually controlled the area for 150 years, in which they conquered the coastal inhabitants of the Arabian Peninsula. However, the Ottoman Empire reasserted itself in the Persian Gulf until World War I, when the UAE and neighboring areas became a British protectorate. Crucial sheikhs. Portions of what is now the UAE came under the direct influence of the Ottoman Empire during the 16th century. Thereafter, the region was known to the British as the Pirate Coast, as raiders based the harassed the shipping industry, despite both European and Omani navies patrolling the area from the 17th to 19th centuries. British expeditions to protect the Indian trade from raiders at Ras Al Khaimah led to campaigns against that headquarters and other harbors along the coast in 1819. The next year, a peace treaty was signed to which all the sheikhs of the coast adhered. Raids continued intermittently until 1835, when the sheikhs agreed not to engage in hostilities at sea. In 1853, they signed a treaty with the United Kingdom, under which the sheikhs agreed to a perpetual maritime truce. It was enforced by the United Kingdom, and disputes among sheikhs were referred to the British for settlement. The British era, primarily in reaction to the ambitions of other European countries, the United Kingdom and the trucial sheikdoms established closer bonds in an 1892 treaty, similar to treaties entered into by the UK with other Persian Gulf principalities. The sheikhs agreed not to dispose of any territory except to the United Kingdom, and not to enter into relationships with any foreign government, other than the United Kingdom, without its consent. In return, the British promised to protect the Trucial Coast from all aggression by sea and to help in case of land attack. In her book The Judicial System in the Trucial Coast, Nora Saqr al-Falahi argues that the 1892 treaty had a profound role in isolating the country for a long time, which has impeded development in comparison to other communities in the region at the time. The rise and fall of the pearling industry. During the 19th and early 20th centuries, the pearling industry thrived in the relative calm at sea, providing both income and employment to the people of the Persian Gulf. It began to become a good economic resource for the local people. The First World War had a severe impact on the pearl fishery, but it was the Great Depression of the late 1920s and early 1930s, coupled with the Japanese invention of the cultured pearl, that all but destroyed it. The industry eventually faded away shortly after the Second World War, when the newly independent government of India imposed heavy taxation on pearls imported from the Arab states of the Persian Gulf. The decline of pearling resulted in a very difficult era, with little opportunity to build any infrastructure. The beginning of the oil era. In the 1930s, the first oil company teams carried out preliminary surveys. An onshore concession was granted to petroleum development in 1939, and an offshore concession to Darcy Exploration Limited in 1952. Oil was discovered under an old pearling bed in the Persian Gulf, Shaif, in 1958, and in the desert at Murban in 1960. The first cargo of crude was exported from Jebel Dana in Abu Dhabi in 1962. As oil revenues increased, the ruler of Abu Dhabi, Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan, undertook a massive construction program, building schools, housing, hospitals and roads. When Dubai's oil exports commenced in 1969, Sheikh Rashid bin Saeed Al Maktoum, the ruler of Dubai, was also able to use oil revenues to improve his people's quality of life. Border disputes. In 1955, the United Kingdom sided with Abu Dhabi in the latter's dispute with Oman over the Brahimi Oasis, another territory to the south. A 1974 agreement between Abu Dhabi and Saudi Arabia would have settled the Abu Dhabi-Saudi border dispute. However, the agreement has yet to be ratified by the UAE government and is not recognized by the Saudi government. The border with Oman also remains officially unsettled, but the two governments agreed to delineate the border in May 1999. Sheikh Zayed and the Union. In the early 1960s, oil was discovered in Abu Dhabi, an event that led to quick unification calls made by UAE sheikdoms. Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan became ruler of Abu Dhabi in 1966, and the British started losing their oil investments and contracts to U.S. oil companies. The British had earlier started a development office that helped in some small developments in the Emirates. The sheikhs of the Emirates then decided to form a council to coordinate matters between them and took over the development office. They formed the Trucial States Council, and appointed date.The, Sheikh Rashid bin Saeed Al Maktoum's legal advisor, as Secretary General and legal advisor to the council. This council was terminated once the United Arab Emirates was formed. Independence. By 1966, the British government had come to the conclusion that it could no longer afford to govern what is now the United Arab Emirates. Much deliberation took place in the British Parliament, with a number of MPs arguing that the Royal Navy would not be able to defend the Trucial sheikdoms. Dennis Healey, who, at the time, was the UK Secretary of State for Defence, reported that the British armed forces were severely overextended, and in some respects, dangerously under-equipped to defend the sheikdoms. On the 24th of January 1968, British Prime Minister Harold Wilson announced the decision, reaffirmed in March 1971 by Prime Minister Edward Heath, to end the treaty relationships with the 7 Trucial sheikdoms which had been, together with Bahrain and Qatar, under British protection. Days after the announcement, the ruler of Abu Dhabi, Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan, fearing vulnerability, tried to persuade the British to honor the protection treaties by offering to pay in full the costs of keeping the British armed forces in the Emirates. The British Labour government rebuffed the offer. Federation of Emirates. After Labour MP Goranwi Roberts informed Sheikh Zayed of the news of British withdrawal, the 9 Persian Gulf sheikdoms attempted to form a Federation of Arab Emirates. The federation was first proposed in February 1968 when the rulers of Abu Dhabi and Dubai met in the desert location of Argub el Sadira and agreed on the principle of union. They announced their intention to form a coalition, extending an invitation to other Persian Gulf states to join. Later that month, in a summit meeting attended by the rulers of Bahrain, Qatar and the Trucial Coast, the government of Qatar proposed the formation of a Federation of Arab Emirates to be governed by a higher council composing of 9 rulers. This proposal was accepted and a declaration of union was approved. There were, however, several disagreements between the rulers on matters such as the location of the capital, the drafting of the constitution and the distribution of ministries. Further political issues surfaced as a result of Bahrain attempting to impose a leading role in the 9-state union, as well as the emergence of a number of differences between the rulers of the Trucial Coast, Bahrain and Qatar. the latter two being in a long-running dispute over the Hawa Islands, while Dubai's ruler, Sheikh Rashid, had a strong connection to the Qatari ruling family, including the royal intermarriage of his daughter with the son of the Qatari emir. The relationship between Abu Dhabi and Dubai was to endure the breakup of the talks with both Bahrain and Qatar. Overall, there were only 4 meetings between the 9 rulers. The last such meeting, which took place in Abu Dhabi, saw Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan elected as the first president of the federation. The worst stalemate saw numerous issues during the meeting, including the position of vice president, the defense of the federation, and whether a constitution was required. Shortly after the meeting, the political agent in Abu Dhabi revealed the British government's interests in the outcome of the session, prompting Qatar to withdraw from the federation, apparently over what it perceived as foreign interference in internal affairs. The 9-Emirate Federation was consequently disbanded despite efforts by Saudi Arabia, Kuwait and Britain to reinvigorate discussions. Bahrain became independent in August 1971, and Qatar in September 1971. When the British Trucial Sheikdoms Treaty expired on December 1, 1971, the Trucial States became fully independent sheikdoms. 4 more of the Trucial States had decided to join Abu Dhabi and Dubai in signing the UAE's founding treaty, with a draft constitution in place drafted in record time to meet the December 2, 1971 deadline. On that date, at the Dubai Guest House, the Emirates agreed to enter into a union to be called the United Arab Emirates. Ras Al Khaimah joined later, following Iran's swift annexation of the Tubbs Islands in early 1972. The move to form a union took place at a time of unprecedented instability in the region, with a border dispute killing 22 in Khalba and a coup in Sharjah in January 1972. The then Emir of Qatar was deposed by his cousin in February 1972. Post-independence. After the 9/11 terrorist attacks on the United States, the UAE was identified as a major financial center used by Al-Qaeda in transferring money to the hijackers. The nation immediately cooperated with the United States, freezing accounts tied to suspected terrorists and strongly clamping down on money laundering. The country had already signed a military defense agreement with the United States in 1994 and one with France in 1995. The UAE supports military operations from the United States and other coalition nations engaged in the invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq, as well as operations supporting the global war on terrorism for the Horn of Africa at Al Dhafra Air Base, located outside of Abu Dhabi. The airbase also supported Allied operations during the 1991 Persian Gulf War and Operation Northern Watch. On the 2nd of November 2004, the UAE's first president, Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan, died. His eldest son, Sheikh Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahyan, succeeded him as ruler of Abu Dhabi. In accordance with the constitution, the UAE Supreme Council of Rulers elected Khalifa as president. Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan succeeded Khalifa as Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi. In January 2006, Sheikh Maktoum bin Rashid Al Maktoum, the Prime Minister of the UAE and the ruler of Dubai, died, and Crown Prince Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum assumed both roles. In March 2006, the United States forced the state-owned Dubai Ports World to relinquish control of terminals at 6 major American ports. Critics of the port's deal feared an increased risk of terrorist attack, saying the UAE had been home to 2 of the 9/11 hijackers. In December 2006, the UAE prepared for its first election to determine half the members of UAE's Federal National Council from 450 candidates. However, only 7,000 Emirati UAE citizens, less than 1% of the Emirati population, were given the right to vote in the election. The exact manner of selection was opaque. Notably, women were included in the electorate. 2011 Present in 2011, the Middle East saw a number of pro-democratic uprisings, popularly known as the Arab Spring. The UAE saw comparatively little unrest, but did face one high-profile case in which 5 pro-democracy activists were arrested on charges of insulting the president, Sheikh Khalifa, the vice president, Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, and the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. The trial of the UAE 5 attracted international publicity and protest from a number of human rights groups, including Amnesty International, which named the 5 men prisoners of conscience. The defendants were convicted and given 2 to 3 year prison sentences on the 27th of November 2011. However, all 5 were pardoned without comment by Sheikh Khalifa the following day.